Head scratchers abound. I think I opened this one with saying, I talk fast. I sound mad. I'm really not, just passionate. So forgive me if every time I get like I'm sounding angry. Anyway, Calvinist Reformed Tulip Theology people. John 6, 43, 44, 45. Some of the favorite verses used to prove regeneration, to prove irresistible grace, to prove that God has to do a work in the heart of man. God must do all the drawing. And Ezekiel 36, changing of the heart of stone out, flesh in. Here's the question, though. How do you disregard this verse 45 as meaning kind of what it says? I mean, Jesus tells this crowd, those who listened and learned, those that were taught, will come to me. And those who have been taught, and who have heard the Father, come to me. When you use books like Jeremiah, he read it aloud from daybreak, the word of God. These people came intently, purposely. They listened and learned. They all listened attentively. And, here it is again. People came again after the walls were built, the temple was built, opened the book. All the people could see him. He opened it. They stood up. They were excited. They listened. They learned. As you keep going, they were instructed. If you read this whole chapter, he explained it in meticulous detail. I really want you to understand this, Ezra and Nehemiah said to the people that were coming back to Jerusalem. So they read from the book of the law so that people understood. They listened, they heard, and here they understood. They were instructed. They listened and learned, and they listened and they learned, and they were starting to feel guilty listening to the word. And Nehemiah goes on to say, no, this is a good day. Rejoice. So going back to the main question, John 6, how come I don't hear any Calvinist Reformed Tulip people say, oh, yes, it was totally the number one command in the Old Testament that you must listen, you must learn, you must hear. And any Bible person, that's deep into theology understands in Hebrew what hear really meant. You take it to heart and you start acting it out. You start living it out. You start having faith in it and using it as your guidepost. So listen, hear, learn. How come Jesus says this? I mean, Jesus, pretty good orator, probably doesn't misspeak very often. How does this have to do with some irresistible means in drawing when Jesus in this particular chapter is no doubt talking to possibly 5,000 Jews, a great majority of Jews, not all. Let me just give you one more proof, that the Old Testament, especially the book of the law, the first 5 books, the Torah, here's what you were commanded to do. And how does it fit John 6? Sorry, I always get crazy with my words. How does it fit John 6? Well, was Jesus possibly saying, look, if you listened, learned, heard the Father, if you really were a faithful Jew, you'd recognize me. You would come to me. How do I know? Well, because God, I just told you, that's how God set it up. He draws any that know the word, that truly worship the Father, they'll come to me because you'll recognize me because I'm saying his words. Again, sorry. Here it comes, though. This is pretty powerful. I think you can find it. Deuteronomy 7, he continues the same thing. Decrees, these are what you must do. Teach your people. Observe what I've said. Teach and admonish to your children and your children's children. Well, wait a second. Let's see. John 6, Jesus says, if you learned and heard my Father's words You'd be drawn to me. You'd come to me and I wouldn't kick you out. Plus, I would know your heart. I would certainly never cast you out. Hear, O Israel, hear, apply it, live it. So the Jews during John 6, if they applied it after they heard it and learned it, and they were living it, they would recognize Jesus. Why do the Calvinists, Reformed Tulip people, just never talk about that? Do they believe any of that's true? Is that a possibility? If you question whether or not if you think that takes the gospel or the truth out of our hands 2,000 years later, no, it doesn't. It's a good reminder that we should listen and learn the truth. It's a good reminder for us to go into the Old Testament and see what was taught there. Go into the Old Testament to see how come people would come to the point of actually rejecting the one who saved them, guided them, blessed them, gave them land, made promises, so on and so forth. Maybe I went past it. Okay, head scratchers abound. There it is. Stop grumbling. No one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws them, and I'll raise them up. And it is written in the prophets, they will be taught by God. Everyone who has heard the Father and learn comes to me. No one can come to me unless the Father draws. Only those who have heard the Father and learned from the Father come to me. It seems like a really good connection that I don't ever hear Reformed people make. Okay, head scratchers abound.